The second one, the Chronicle of 640 by Thomas the Presbyter, states the following. Now 640, how many years are we talking here? 8 years after Prophet ﷺ's death. Now that's very, very, very close. And as we'll see, you don't find stuff like this in Christianity at all. You wish to find something that was 8 years after Jesus. That's from another, no chance. And it's manuscript evidence. And it says the following. In the year 945, in Diction 7, on Friday the 4th of February, at the 9th hour, there was a battle between the Romans and the Tayyai of Muhammad. Now Tayyai, the Arabs of Muhammad, Hoyland, he does the translation for this. He's written in his book. It's been peer reviewed. I don't think there's much discussion about the Syriac here, Tayyai, what it means. And so here, once again, in Palestine, 12 miles east of Gaza, the Romans fled, leaving behind patrician Bryden, whom the Arabs killed. Some 4,000 poor villagers of Palestine were killed there. Christians, Jews and Samaritans. The Arabs ravaged the whole region. In the year 947, the Arabs invaded the whole Syria and went down to Persia and conquered it. The Arabs climbed the mountain of Mardin and killed many monks there in the monasteries of Kedar and Nata. There died a blessed man, Simon, doorkeeper of Kedar, brother of Thomas, the priest. So Muhammad is mentioned again in a very early source by Thomas the Presbyter. So that's another primary. And by the way, there's lots of these, but I'm just giving you 3 from non-Islamic sources, just so that you can have them in your arsenal. Because someone will ask you, what is the evidence according to our method? I'm telling you, this is the evidence according to the method of today. We're not going hadith. We're not going there. We're sticking with manuscripts, non-Arabic written. We're giving you all your criterion. And yet we're still coming to this. And by the way, these are housed in the British Museum and the British Library. I mean, it's not like the manuscripts of these things are in some place in Baghdad or Cairo, where maybe there's some guy forged it or made it up. It's right there. Anyone can visit and go to the British Museum and see it in public exhibition. This one here is written in 661, which is a bit later, but the amount of detail on this by Cebius, and he wrote a book called The History of Heraclius, yeah? It's actually quite startling. So let me read some of what he said. At the time, a certain man from among those same sons of Ishmael, whose name was Muhammad, a merchant, as if by God's command, appeared to them as a preacher and the path of truth. He taught them to recognize the God of Abraham, especially because he was learnt and informed in the history of Moses. Now, because the command was from on high, at a single order they all came together in unity of religion. Abandoning their vain cults, they turned to the living God, who had appeared to their father Abraham. So Muhammad legislated for them not to eat carrion, not to drink wine, not to speak falsely, and not to engage in fornication. He said, with an oath, God promised this land to Abraham and his seed after him forever. And he brought about, as he promised during that time while he loved Israel, but now you are the sons of Abraham, and God is accomplishing his promise to Abraham and his seed for you. Love sincerely only the God of Abraham, and go and seize the land which God gave to your father Abraham. No one will be able to resist you in battle, because God is with you. This is amazing detail, isn't it? This is not from an Arab source. This is Cebius himself. So these are some of the evidences that we've got here, and there are more. The doctrine of Jacobi and so on. The reason why I brought these ones in particular, and there are so many more, is because these ones actually mention the word Muhammad in them. And they're very, very early. So all the criterion are met. What more do we want? I mean, we have a whole list of different things that are mentioned here. Now, in addition to this, you have a range of coins being minted. Now, of course, this, for example, if we were to compare this with early Christianity, there is no coin with Jesus on it in the first 100 years of Jesus, because Jesus wasn't in political power. So they don't have the privilege of having any coins that they can use to corroborate even the existence of Jesus, whereas we do have coins. And really and truly, the first coin with the word Muhammad on it was actually at the time of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, 66 AH, some 50 years after the Prophet ﷺ's death. However, really and truly, there were coins with other symbols on them and other phrases which are known to the Muslims. For example, the Basmala, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, or Bismillah, or Lillah, Lillah, for Allah. So these coins were there. The first coin with the word Muhammad on it that I came across looking at the primary source evidence was one in 66 AH, which is pretty early indeed. Now, there are some interesting things about coins. And what I'm going to mention about that is that really, what's interesting and why people have discussed it is you'll find that some of the coins, it was an amalgamation, okay, of like Persian symbolism, sometimes Roman symbolism, and Islamic symbolism. So you'll find in some of the early coins, you have like the Qaisar on it, and then you also have Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, for example. Or you'll have, in some cases, you even have a cross on some of them. So how could an Islamic coin have a cross on it? How could an Islamic coin have these symbols of the Persians on it? How could it be? And the answer is this. It's simply that these were the symbols that the people of those nations were used to. If you found a piece of silver which didn't have this, a dirham or a dinar, that didn't have this symbolism on it, it would not be recognized as a coin. It would not be accepted or traded as a coin by those people. And hence it would not fulfill its function of being a coin. And moreover, the machines that they were using to mint those coins had those symbols on them. To create new machines all over the empire, in the new empire, was not practical. And this shows you, by the way, that the Sahaba must have therefore been very practical and pragmatic. You see, we have this notion, nostalgic and false notion about the Sahaba, that they were extremely intolerant and incapable of any kind of pragmatism. But for them to have, and this was historically on the record, coins which had some symbols of shirk on them, sometimes, but because it was ta'addar al-amr, because the situation became so difficult that you couldn't even trade without those coins, you can see usul al-fiqh in practice at the time of the Sahaba, the early generation. Ad-darurat tibih al-mahdhurat, that certainly things of necessity make what is halal haram. You'll find that if someone tried this nowadays, they wouldn't accept this, as if they're more pious than the pious predecessors, because they have a false notion, a nostalgic false notion of what the pious predecessors are. Surely, yes, they were. It's true. Abu Bakr Siddiq was very staunch on certain issues, and we'll come to maybe some of that. And the pious predecessors were very staunch and non-compromising on certain issues. But where it came at the threat of the political supremacy of the Islamic civilization, they didn't actually, they engaged in pragmatic politics. And that's very clear. You have coins with symbols of shirk on there. But it was because it was so difficult to change it across the empire, and it was free flowing and stuff, they just used it and put as much Islamic things as they could. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Simple as that, really. But the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention is because someone will say, well, it doesn't make sense that the first coins that you have are coins with, for example, both of these things. It shows that Islam was still a developing religion. It's still, because remember, the Orientalists wants to say Islam was actually crafted at the time of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. Some of them have said this. I've seen, as we're going to cover some of his works, Stephen Shoemaker. Yeah, that's his name. But we'll come to it. He kind of makes this kind of point, and he's got academic pieces and stuff. We'll come to it. He's a very interesting guy to read, actually. Anti kind of Islamic narrative or Orientalist type of the Christian guy. That actually Islam was developed in the time of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. But as we've said, there's enough information from the first 10 years of the Prophet's death, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, that not only mention his name, but mention very specific things about his mission. So that was before Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. If we say Abdul Malik ibn Marwan was, for example, 65 AH or something like that. That's why it's important to know the timeline. He's an Umayyad at the time of the Umayyads. But way before that, we have primary source information from non-Muslims that indicate the name of the Prophet and the mission of the Prophet. Of course, in addition to, and we're going to come to this, the manuscripts we have the Quran, and the manuscripts we have, and the Hadith manuscripts. And not just manuscripts, the hadith itself and the sanads and all that kind of stuff, which we believe. But that's coming from a confessionary Islamic perspective. And we're granting, for the sake of argument, all of the premises that the historical revisionist wants us to take. We're saying even if you grant all of that, you're still wrong. So we're going to the next thing. So coins are an interesting thing, but you need to kind of know what's going on with them. And these are some pictures of the coins. I mean, I've put them there. They're very, very, you can buy them. Like you can buy a coin like this for about £100. You know, Adnan Rashid, our friend, mashallah, he's got a nice coin collection. And you can see if you want to see these coins, yani, if you want to touch them and stuff, you can get some coins and you can touch them. Okay, you can touch them and feel them. Okay, yes. Inscriptions. Another thing is, which has become more, there's so many inscriptions. There's actually a few very important inscriptions of the early days. One of them is the inscription of Zebedee, and another one is this inscription of Zuhair of 24 AH. And this inscription, if we say it's 24 AH, we're talking about the time of Umar ibn Khattab. And the inscription says that Umar Khattab died on this time, whatever, like at this time period. And this is in line with the Islamic narrative. Zuhair wrote this at the time Umar died in the year 24 AH. And this is in line with our calendar and our rendering of when Umar al-Khattab died. So these are the kinds of inscriptions there. Now, it's true to say, when Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan, for example, when he became in power, the inscriptions exploded, especially in Masjid al-Aqsa. There started being inscriptions all over the walls and all this kind of things. But inscriptions was not a practice, really, of the Arabs, that they would go and write stuff on rocks and stuff like that. It wasn't something they did. It wasn't their culture to go and write stuff. But even despite that, notwithstanding that being the fact, you still do have these inscriptions. So look, you have a triangulation of evidences here. That's what I'm coming to. You've got coins, you've got inscriptions, you've got early manuscripts from non-Muslim sources. And it becomes so much that someone like Patricia Crona, who's meant to be like the most aberrational historical revisionist, that even about her, Fred Bonner, who's meant to be someone who's also Orientalist, he says that she asked all the right questions, but she had all the wrong answers. Now, even he admits, and she came back to her senses, had to come back to her senses. This you will never find, and I keep challenging, you can never ever find such levels of preservation from different sources in any other ancient world religion which is dominant in the world demographic today. Hinduism, no chance. Judaism, absolutely no chance whatsoever. We're going to come to that near the end of this. And that's why I actually get enraged that, if you have a discussion with a Jew and he tries to compare Jewish preservation with this, it's actually comical. It's comical. It's a lie. And obviously Christianity as well. This is the picture of the inscription. Now, some people say, look, and you've heard this, you probably heard this before. You say, look, the first Seerah, yes, was Ibn Hisham. So a lot of people make this mistake. Actually, it's not even the case that the first Seerah was Ibn Hisham or Ibn Ishaq, because Ibn Ishaq has been preserved in Ibn Hisham. It's not the case that Ibn Ishaq has been preserved. It's not that. It's not even the first manuscript we have. It's not true. That is not understanding even the manuscript evidence, because we've got seerahs before Ibn Hisham. For example, we have Musa ibn Uqba, and he had something called al-Maghazi, and that was 141. So that's even that ma'luma, that particular piece of information is incorrect. We have manuscripted seerahs that go to 141. Now, the seerah doesn't mean that all the hadith was not there and then this guy made it all up. Of course, we've had the hadith tradition, and we'll come to this, of asanid, of chains of narration from the time of the Prophet. Now, he just wrote a book compiling that stuff at 141, and that's the earliest manuscript of an entire story of the Prophet that we have. It doesn't mean that the hadith were not there. The hadith were there. For even manuscript evidence of the hadith was there before. For example, the Sahifa of Hammab ibn Munabbih. And we have partial manuscripts of Ibn Munabbih found near Aswan. And you'll find them actually, some of them in Berlin, some of them in different places. Hammam ibn Munabbih was actually the student of Abu Hurairah. he was born 19 AH, which is, as you can probably add the numbers now, 9 years after the Prophet, 8 years after the Prophet's death.